he wound up winding up buying that back from Endries, when Endries wanted the liquor license. So he bought that back, and then all of a sudden now it's all of us together again as a whole lot. Well, I don't know how he got approached that and got that done, but I'm just, so then moving forward, I would just like to see if we could just split it up. Maybe the bar could be sold and the shop and the house. And I know that the guy that's in there welding right now, he would like to actually buy that, but he don't want to spend the money for the whole lot. He'd rather just buy the shop itself. So that's where we're having a little issue.
I see there's a for sale sign out there.
There is.
Does that include everything that's in that blue?
That's for the, well, no, it's all the way.
Triangle.
It goes the whole triangle.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the whole triangle.
Well, in the open session, we can't take any action.
No. I just want to be clear of what, so there's 3 owners involved there. And
Right. But Gordon, he owns the one in the blue, I believe. That would be his part, but then us 3 all own it together on the bigger triangle square with the shop.
so actually there's 4 owners in that.
3.
Well, I'm gonna have to cut it off because we're
Okay.
at 5 minutes left.
All right, thank you.
Here. Okay, you said you have 4 items?
Yep.
Okay. Introduce yourself, so the recording is picking up.
Amber Christensen. There are 4 separate items. I'll start with the first one. I dropped off a document to Luke on Thursday, or to Becky. The Cambridge Wind Farm permit says that the permit that you approved said they're using 13 1.7 megawatt turbines in the project, and they switched those to 2.3s when they got out to the PUC, and I wasn't sure that the county had approved that, or I haven't seen anything come through the county saying that they changed the permit. That would also increase sound levels to some homes. Also, Crown Ridge they got a permit for 600 megawatts through the county to 300 megawatt projects in the same CUP. And they've notified the state that they're reducing each of those by 100 megawatts, so it's now only a 400 megawatt project, which is 1/3. They dropped 1/3 of what you actually approved in the county. And I don't believe I haven't seen anything come through here that they've notified you of that substantial change. I consider that a breach of contract. I would think you would. So the county auditor is on the service list, so she would have been notified, but I don't know how it gets down to who it needs to get to, or how it goes from there. So I'm really here kind of asking the process of how to fix that. I consider it an entirely new project. They've switched turbines, they've switched the size of the project, and I think it should be revoked. That permit should be revoked, and they should apply for a new one, because all the dollar amounts coming to the county have changed. So I guess that is my first issue that I wanted to address. If you have any questions of me, or if you could tell me the process of, they totally changed the permit.
So you're saying they went from 600 to 400?
Yes.
And
Who said that?
it's
It's at the PUC.
at the PUC.
Yeah.
From the twin. Each permit, each each permit out at the state has been notified that they're dropping 100 megawatts from Crown Ridge 1 and Crown Ridge 2. So the permit that you permitted for 600 megawatts is now 400 megawatts.
I will remind the board that under legal advice, legal counsel was to not engage in discussion regarding any matters about Crown Ridge, given there is a pending lawsuit in this matter.
Okay, that's item 1.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Proceed to 2, if that's your plan.
Okay, this also pertains to Crown Ridge that we have notified the zoning officer, and he has replied that in the findings of fact, the Crown Ridge project permit that you granted was for Crown Ridge 1 and Crown Ridge 2 combined. They did not come under 2 separate permits. They only applied for 1 permit for both projects. So it's all inclusive. And then they applied, originally they applied for 2 separate permits out at the state. They pulled at the PUC. They pulled the Crown Ridge 2 permit and waited a few months to reapply, otherwise they would have both permits by now. But they don't have a Crown Ridge 2 permit. They do have a Crown Ridge 1 permit at the state level. But your findings of fact say they have to have all of their state permits before they can start construction, and that was their choice to do it under 1 permit in the county. So we've also notified the county commissioners of that, but I thought the Board of Adjustment should be aware that they're working illegally. And so we did get a reply from Luke saying that he thought that it was fine. And like I said, we kicked it up to the county commissioners, but if we should file a complaint with you and appeal before we go to a judge for a stop order, I'd like you to tell me what that process would be, because we got the notice from Luke after the time that things would have had to been on this docket, or not this docket, this agenda. So I believe our attorney received your reply on the 10th, and things were due on the 7th.
True. The process is to file an appeal of any decision of the zoning officer, just be filed, and then it would be placed on the agenda, similar to a variance request at the next meeting.
Okay, I consider it an urgent matter since it's like an anthill out in the country out there. I think waiting a whole other month would be way too long. So is there an opportunity for an emergency meeting or something of that nature?
We wind up the process for an emergency, for a special meeting is just it's a $700 fee for a special meeting, and then it winds up being, as we can get board members together, is what it amounts to.
Okay. So that was my second item.
Okay.
My third item is when I was an intervener on the PUC docket for Crown Ridge 1 project. And during our discovery or our digging that we did for that project, we found that Jay Haley, who did the sound and flicker study for this Crown Ridge 1 and 2 permit in the county, he represented himself as a professional engineer, and he is not. He was not. Actually, John Wiles brought that up during the public meeting, saying we don't even know who these people are. They claim something, but they may not be that. So since you relied on his credentials and his information to make your decision, I think it's important that you know that he misrepresented himself, and He's not a professional engineer. He was a mechanical professional engineer, a mechanical engineer, but he also lied at the public input hearing in Waverly when he was asked point blank if he was a registered professional engineer, and he said yes, he is not. So he misled the board and the public, and he relied on that testimony. The public relied on that, and I think that's also important to be brought to your attention, and the permit should be revoked just on that. Any questions on that? No?
What was his name?
J. Haley. EAPC was the company.
Okay.
Moving right along to number 4. So Crown Bridge the Crown Bridge project actually started construction before they had all the state permits. And they also started construction out in the county without all of their permits. They started dirt work on July 12th, and I understand they can do dirt work. But they actually had buildings present in August. We have photos of that. And the building permit for the O&M building was not issued until September 11th. I also have a question about construction out there. So they're putting in a lot of culverts, they're putting in a lot of approaches, they're digging out corners, they're widening corners, and making the ditches disappear. And is there not any overview for that? I mean, they just kind of get to go willy-nilly on what they want to do. I don't see any kind of permitting or anything like that either.
On roadways, it would wind up being with the road authority. Anything going on within the right-of-way would be on whatever road authority it is.
Okay. Do they need to be notified by someone, or who checks those things, or?
It would wind up being on their, whatever their process is for whichever specific road authority. I don't have any
Nothing to do with that?
purview or understanding.
Okay.
No.
Or the water, drainage kind of things, or?
As far as within the right-of-way, no. And we frankly don't have a drainage ordinance either
Okay,
to follow it.
okay. My other question is, do the transmission poles require permitting?
No building permits for transmission poles. Only if they're in a floodplain, then they require a floodplain development permit.
Okay. I also notified you via email that I believe that they're doing actual construction without permits on some of those turbines. You can see those things above grade.
I'm actually gonna go out for a drive and go check some of these out. I haven't been out in the last month, so I'm gonna go take a look at them. Actually, I've seen an email that said construction activities. I assume that's probably what it was gonna be about. I wanna go up and take a look at them anyway, so.
Okay.
I actually planned on going up. I was planning on later this week, but it looks like this is gonna be as good a day as any, so.
It's really wet out there. That's,
Yeah, it's not gonna be awesome.
like getting up to the access road to see if there's actual real construction, because like there's big mounds of dirt, you can't really see a lot of things. But I've seen cranes on many of those places, and you don't need a crane if you're just doing dirt work.
Well, and either way, I need to get up there anyway and see what's going on.
It's
I
just a
haven't been up
lot
there
for
in a long
you, and
time.
I just think
No.
that's kind of a lot on such a big project for you to try to keep track of, so I don't know. I also want to know if they're required to post 911 signs. Like when I built my house, I had to purchase a 911 sign, and I haven't seen any of those.
They are required to buy them.
They're not required to post?
They're not required to post them,
Oh.
required to purchase them. It would be unwise not to, but they technically aren't required to. We've got fistfuls of them from people all over that haven't bothered to pick them up. I would not advise someone to do that, but they wouldn't necessarily have to. We actually just went through and were able to assign addresses to all of them here in this last week. So it's going to be a case now of actually putting them together. But they have paid for them as they did them, and we're working on putting them together. We're basically doing the same amount of building permits we would do in a year over the course of about 2.5 months. So we're working on that.
Okay, and then I'd also, this might be a highway department thing maybe, but there are street signs missing, the cross street signs, you know, so if there is a 911 call, And the one just north of me is missing, but it's like on the edge of Grant County, so I notified Grant County. But I was talking to a neighbor who told me, up in that whole area and up by South Shore, there's a multitude of them have been taken down.
Do you know if that's a township, or is that county that winds up putting those up? You, commissioners, do you know that?
911 signs.
No, the street corner signs.
Adams.
Do we put them up?
That's county.
Do we?
No,
Township
township.
does their own, I mean, the county does
Township.
the county, I think township does the township. Each road authority takes care of their own.
Either way, we can let Rick know.
Yeah.
Township.
Do you know, have you marked corners or, okay. I'll talk to,
I'm sure Rick has been out there.
I'll give them a heads up though too, to go look at it. Because they do have a way of walking off regardless of what's happening, but I'll give them a heads up.
They got people like something.
Yeah. Township.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they came in, state control.
Let's see, the other step where it's speed limit and all that.
Okay.
That was
I think that's all I have. Thank you
Okay.
for your time.
Thank you. Next item is matters for board discussion. Administrative report, and then I'd like
Let me see it. Administrative report. I did spend some time, this last 10 weeks has been, every other week has been some conference of some sort, so it's been tough on office hours as well for people trying to get a hold of us as well, but pretty much every other Wednesday I've been gone. The last one, spent some time with presenters from South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, who oftentimes represents us in lawsuits. One of the recommendations that we see in some of our trade shows that we go to is, and I've heard this many years, I haven't brought it to you because I know about how long of a response it's going to get out of you, but they've told us to quit recording our meetings, basically to keep track of minutes, which is what we're required to do. I just promised that I would relay that on. I'm not expecting a bunch of discussion about should we or shouldn't we. We will continue doing as we have been unless we're told otherwise by the board. Because while there are some things that they would like to see us do, I think there's other things from a practical standpoint that we have been doing. It makes life way easier for Becky to try and do minutes on the backside if we have a recording. Otherwise, we have to, it'll be a lot tougher. But anyway, I needed to relay that to you. It's been probably 3-4 years we've been suggested to do that, and this year I heard it 3 times, so I figured I probably better say it this time. But that was all. From administrative report, I've been out doing presentations with that, Municipal League and County Commissioners Association, but that's it. The only other thing I would note with that is that with having information discussed on the open, if we do have an appeal filed, we will have to note that we did have, if anything involved in the discussion here is involved in the discussion with any appeals that would come. You will have to note that we had discussion on the open regarding any of these matters if any of that is discussed on a pending appeal where we disclose conflict of interest or previous conversations about an item. Thankfully, it was all in public meeting. That's all I've got, and then unless anyone on the board has something, we probably ought to go into executive session. And that was for pending